Choto, Kinichiro, dozo. Moto pancake. Moto pancake. Moto pancake. Hai. Hai. Hai.
Hi, I'm Meredith Danluck here in Los Angeles with Paul Thomas Anderson, the director of Inherent Vice. I actually wanted to kind of go back in time a little bit. August 9th, 1969, the day that the news of the Manson murders broke, which Joan Didion said was collectively in Los Angeles the day that that was the end of the 60s. Mm-hmm. And so your movie is set in 1970, and there's this atmosphere of paranoia and escapism, which is so much fun and also somehow really relevant. Why did you choose this movie for now?
I didn't make a decision like that. And I suppose that question would be better put to Pynchon. In 2009 is when the book came out. But as somebody who was there, who sort of wrote in the 60s, it's worth asking, you know, what's still nagging at you that you've got to look back? You could write about anything, but there's something obviously still nagging at him to want to talk about it again, still. I mean, it's well-covered ground, but he seemed to do it in a way that was exciting and new and funny. But obviously there's enough on his mind, there's still sort of unresolved business that he felt the desire to write about it. I was just responding to what he wrote, you know. I sort of, connections to today, you know, that's a kind of a big one to bite off, which isn't, I never really try to do that. I kind of think in smaller terms, like, how the hell am I going to make this movie, you know, and that kind of thing. But maybe it's because it goes without saying that the things he talks about are still relevant. The Golden Fang is this idea of this kind of mysterious organization that somehow seems to fuck everything up for the good guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, conspiracy theories in general always seem to come up at a time where everything seems super fucked up. You know, like post 9/11, it was just like, okay, well, there has to be a reason, and here's all these tidy little packages that tie it all together. And really, at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking for, is a kind of reason and explanation for all the shitty things.
You don't love this. The rumor is that the Department of Justice is trying to...
There you go.
Thank you. The word I'm hearing is that the Department of Justice is trying to broker a Vegas deal for him.
Doesn't compute. Say again. Vegas, Wolfman.
FBI stuff. They need somebody else on the strip who's not Italian. You dig? Like Howard Hughes when he bought the Desert Inn.
Howard Hughes was Italian?
And the kind of course of watching the movie, you kind of go along the trip with Doc. You know, you're mapping out like, okay, well, here's the Aryan Brotherhood, and over here is the mob in Vegas, and now we got the syndicate of heroin smuggling dentists. Like, I need a whiteboard, and then at that moment you see
He's
like
got that whiteboard. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it all seems pretty far-fetched and outlandish to hear you describe it right now. But in true kind of Thomas Pynchon way, none of it's not only implausible, none of it's not real. You know, it's all kind of based, I guess conspiracy theories is a kind of thing that you sort of throw around to sort of say somebody's paranoid or they're lost or they're confused. But in fact, I mean, there's no conspiracy theory about the CIA being, you know, complicit in running drugs from Southeast Asia. I mean, it's just sort of fact at this point, you know. You're making me think. I have a friend who you know, they have those little signatures on your iPhone, you know, that you can sign off. He says, spell and grammar correction courtesy of the NSA. You know, I thought it was a good one. You know, that's a Golden Fang moment there. So.
Well, it just, you know, there's something about that, and I think it's the pleasure of reading Pynchon and the pleasure of watching your movie are kind of one and the same, in as much as at some point you're like holding on, gripping, like trying to navigate your way, and then at some point you just kind of let go of the steering wheel and realize that it's the ride.
Yeah, right.
And there aren't a lot of movies like that.
Well, that's good. That's a compliment then. I'll take that. I think that's good. I mean, I don't know how I would react to this movie if I hadn't made it, because I do get hung up sometimes of trying to follow what the people are saying, and I'm never any good at it, you know, and I usually just sort of give up and and wait till the next pretty girl shows up, or the next funny thing happens, or the next kind of chase sequence goes on. And I think you're meant to kind of go through it like Doc, like, you know, meeting one character that's giving you a massive amount of information, meeting somebody else who just contradicts that, and then meeting somebody else who verifies the contradiction.
He's technically Jewish, but wants to be a Nazi.
While in fact reinforcing the first thing that you heard, continuing to just spiral you around and get you into a complete paranoid frenzy. But all the while, it's all kind of right in front of your nose that none of it's that insane, and none of it's that, actually not that convoluted, funny enough.
And
Yeah, it should be like, you know, like, I guess, I don't know, Alice in Wonderland style, kind of, you know.
Perfect.
Following that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something, you know, like there's something great about that feeling of letting go and just kind of going down that rabbit hole. And because at the end of the day, you know, he's left with these actual real emotions in the movie, you know, his emotional connection to Shasta, his emotional connection to Coy. And so regardless of all this other stuff going on and all these kind of political underpinnings and this like bigger picture, he still kind of looks at his relationships. And that's great, because it's kind of at the end of the day, that's all we have.
And I think that, I remember thinking that going into the movie, is that amidst all these crazy jokes and everything else, you got well, there's that, but what else is there? What's the real thing? And the real thing in the book is his love for Shasta, his kind of pining, and that obsession about an ex-old lady that got away that maybe is not the one that you want to be with, but you can't help but think of her all the time.
He's hallucinating.
No, just a new package, I guess.
I need your help, Doc.
I mean, Robert Downey Sr. has been this obsession of mine for a while. He was going on in this interview from the first Toronto Film Festival. He's doing an interview just like this about his film Chafed Elbows, which is about a guy who sleeps with his mother. The main point that he's making is that the entire world, and he lists all the big topics, like poverty, education, civil rights. The only way to cure any of it is through laughs. And I think that thing about Pynchon is that it's funny first, like Lenny Bruce style. You know, they had to do it kind of like taking a piss on it, you know. There was no other way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You just couldn't be serious about some of the ridiculousness of this shit.
Well, there's incredible absurdity in the movie. I mean, the physical comedy alone is something that I didn't expect. But like Joaquin's just falling, like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting knocked over by cops and like knocked out at
Yeah, he's good to throw around. He's a good ragdoll as an actor. He really will do anything, you know. He's kind of afraid, so unafraid to throw his body around, which is great. You want that. You need that.
Well, even, I mean, just how present he is in his body. Like, there's that moment in the diner where he just stands up on he climbs up and gets that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's so fluid. You're like, is he an athlete? What's going on here? And
Yeah.
but
He's feral. He's a little more like an athlete. He's more
Like
like
an
a
animal?
little animal. Actually, that's a much better way to describe him. Somewhere between a rat and a monkey.
perfect.
Yeah, people getting hurt's always funny. I mean, America's Funniest Home Video is big around my house. I like people getting scared. I like that. That's always good. Any of that footage when people are looking at the computer and that scary face comes up, I love that. Boxers coming down to get in the ring with like music playing and a lot of moves and a lot of bravado and wiping out getting into the ring. That's a good one.
I really, really love the way this one was shot, because it felt like, when I saw it at the ACE screening, and at some point I realized I was just like leaning in. Like I almost fell out of my seat. And I realized that the way that those slow push-ins made it feel like I was privy to a private conversation, which is kind of the whole movie is about that.
Yeah, and the whole movie is kind of boring, really. It's just people talking in rooms.
What's the beef here exactly?
I mean, really, I kind of I thought, oh, this will be great. We're going to make a beach movie, and we were like at the beach for an afternoon, you know. And I thought, like, well, this is a lot of good energy to this film. It's like, it's a lot of people sitting in rooms. But that's okay, and that has its own energy. And I think you're responding to something that is fun when you can do it. You know, if you can it's kind of a 2-for-1 thing. If you can if you have a scene where 2 actors are in it, and you can get them naturally sitting someplace, and you can move the camera in, it just starts out as one thing, and by the end of it, you're somewhere else. You know, we have a couple of them in the movie. My favorite one is with Reese and Joaquin. They're sitting on a park bench. There's a perfect example. We got there in the morning. We were right around the corner here in downtown LA, and we got there in the morning, and we had this version of the scene where she comes and sits down and across the table at this lunch area, a bunch of extras and stuff around, and they have this conversation, and we shot Reese and we shot Joaquin, and it was a big nightmare because the sun is moving around here and you're trying to sort of light it, and you kind of go through this whole rigmarole, and it was very unsatisfying, and you feel like, okay, something's still nagging at me and it's lunchtime, what do we do? And then there was a park bench right there, and it was like, well, why don't we go sit at that park bench and set up some dolly track and let you guys do this, and it's just that. And it was fun again. It was like they could act together, they could be in the same space, there wasn't a bunch of lights and stuff in their way, and it was like one of those great moments where you just kind of get lucky because you got sick of yourself, or luckily they were game to do it again, but it was really embarrassing to kind of go through that and feel like, I just wasted all a whole morning trying to do this in this traditional way, and it just doesn't feel right. It's a horrible feeling. And at its best, you can kind of recover and get something like that, and you got a nice shot, and you got 2 great actors together, and yeah, it's a good feeling. I'm glad you like those. Respond to them.
Yeah, I love it. And it doesn't, I mean, if all of that morning led up to that, then it's not really a waste of time.
No, then it's not a waste. Yeah. No, not but those things can kind of turn, you can come up with a good idea at the last minute when you've everybody's run out of steam a little bit. That can happen too. But yeah, at its best, it's all like maybe it was a dress rehearsal for how we were really going to do it.
Yeah. I feel like the question of what is this movie about is doesn't really apply. Because it's one of those, it's like a movie that I think I'll watch it today and think, oh well, this is what it's about.
Sure.
And then in a year I'll watch it again, and in this kind of Rorschach way, it will appear. All these different things will appear.
Yeah, I mean that might be a function of the movie, but my God, that's a function of a million things, like what'd you have for breakfast?
Yeah.
Did you get in a fight with your boyfriend before you came? Was there traffic? Did you watch? All these things, and that's what's great about relationships with films. They're movable. They're different things all the time. Did you see it in the theater? Did you watch it on your phone? All these things apply. Did you see it on a plane? If you saw it on a plane, chances are you're gonna love it. 40,000 feet up in the air, any movie is a good movie. There's rarely been a film that I didn't see on a plane that I didn't love or think. And perhaps on the ground with a little bit of gravity, you think this is not that good a film. But I guess what the book was about to me was about how much we can miss people. That would be one of those bite-sized things to say that stuck with me. I mean, and I can say that it's somebody else's work, and it's like one of those things that I do think it's about, as it applies to people, or as it can apply to the past in general. That's my take on it.
I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, you can kind of point in the direction of Pynchon kind of all you want, but at the end of the day, there are certain things that you kept in the movie and certain things that didn't, and those things that you've kept in the movie, like lines like when Doc goes to help Hope, and there's this line about like I'm not going to get this right.
Okay, which one?
I'll
help you.
It's like Doc had seen it happen before where people lost. Do you know,
For sure, it's people refuse to believe that people they knew were really dead. It's longer in the book that there's these like mix-ups in the emergency room, or they swapped the bodies at the morgue, whatever it was. They came up with all kinds of alternate stories so that it wouldn't have to be true.
And I love that. I love the idea, just in general, of telling yourself one story or several stories to avoid a kind of singular truth, and how the power of love can force you to do that.
Yeah.
And I really felt that in this movie.
Well, but it's also the little thing that I love in there too is this girl, Hope, that Jenna plays. Her intuition is right. you know, that it's not just a kind of classic hippie or doper thing about trying to convince yourself that somebody's still alive by refusing to accept it. Well, that's sort of a beautiful idea. I love that this girl's saying, no, my intuition, I'm not just sort of looking at astrology or something else. There's something operating inside me that knows he's still alive. It's so pretty the way that she does it and the way that it's done. And that's a beautiful thought too, is that separating people from their, you know, or you're paranoid or you're just hoping for this, and that to know I know this to be true, and I know it in my heart, and help me follow my intuition. That's what makes Doc a good character, you know, is helping people follow their intuition, you know.
Yeah, like there's something else operating that is like magic. You know.
Like magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's better than magic?
Doper's ESP.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's better than magic.
No, it's not better than magic. It's just another version of magic.
Working on a script, you have people in mind while you're doing that. You've talked about that.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, you know, and sometimes when you don't, it's really fun because you got to go find those people. You know, Jade, for instance, who's played by Hong Chow, is just a great part in the book. There's no slew of great young Asian actresses out there that are getting a chance to do stuff. So it was like an opportunity, like we get to go find somebody. Where is she, you know? And they're out there. We met a bunch of them, and she was just great to meet and work with. The list is long in this movie of people that we got to go find. You know, obviously, you have bigger parts and you're thinking, you know, to get Josh Brolin here or Benicio or something like that. And those, hopefully you just sort of call those people up and hopefully they have a schedule opening and they say yes and they can come do it. But that joy of going through the book and knowing the parts that were going to make it to the movie and working with discovering people, for lack of a better word, just, you know, like the old-fashioned casting process of sort of people that are either have been hacking away trying to make it as actors, surviving. You know, that's always an exciting thing when you meet actors who are able to do it professionally. In other words, they don't have to have a day job, you know, and they're getting just enough work to legitimately pay the bills and keep the pizza man at bay. And that's a really exciting thing. That was really a great memory that I'll take from this movie, was being able to meet a lot of those people and work with them. And, you know, having a career as an actor is a really noble thing, and it's a really, like, you know, it's nice work if you can get it. And as in many years it was sort of looked at like, you're gonna be an actor, and like, what the fuck are you gonna really do with your life? It's like, well, I hope my kids want to be actors. You know, it's a noble pursuit. It's a hard business, but it's a good business.
Like the hardest job you can do.
Yeah, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. You know, and it beats you know the alternative, I guess.
To me, watching your movies, it seems like everybody's having fun. It like genuinely seems like there's a kind of energy between the actors and that it's contagious.
You know your pals had Mickey Wolfman?
You saw him.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to let me depone you?
Sure would.
You would?
What is it?
Have you ever worked on a movie that you didn't have fun making?
No, no, you know, but fun is. I suppose it's, I mean, I look back with rose-colored glasses. I always look back and think, didn't we have fun? And everyone's like, no, we didn't. That was torturous and it took forever. And there's times when it can be a drag and things aren't working and it's not very fun and you spend too many hours or you're up too late or you're kind of, you know, you're running out of ideas. And there are times when you get lucky and something goes good. It's this sort of junkie mentality that you go through a day or a couple days and you're not really getting anything, but then you get something that feels fun and inspiring and people are clicking and everybody loves working together again. And those moments just feed you and they sustain you through the unfun times, of which there are many during the course of making a movie, because you're anxious for that next hit again, to get one that really feels good and makes things come alive. And that's always exciting. On a movie, you'll have bad days. You know, you're just not going to have, if you're shooting for 60 days, they're not all going to be winners. There're going to be a lot of stinky days. And just like any kind of team, you're all working together. And you know, when you get something good, you kind of the way that we work is like we'll ride a wave of enthusiasm after getting something good, come back to work hard the next day, and we'll always crash that wave. You know, like crash into something that won't work, and then you just claw your way back up again, and hopefully you cut out all the parts that don't work so that it appears as if we knew what we were doing. I mean, that thing of looking like it was we were having fun, that makes me a little prickly, because I mean, there's nothing worse than watching a movie when people look like they're just having a ball doing it. I'm thinking of sometimes I've seen movies where I wish everybody would
Just shut up.
stop smiling so much.
Why are you so self-satisfied over there?
Yeah, I know. It's better to see a little misery and dirt.
Yeah, that was so nice.
Yeah, nice talking with you.
Nice talking with you too.